Hello, I'm Lorne Wolf. This is number 0788, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0788. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet John Paizis, who is the founder and director of Performing Arts Studio West. They have a book out called Mother Goose Reanimated.
Our original thought for this was something much, much smaller. It was just a calendar of 12 nursery rhymes, one for each month of the year. And as we kept developing and working on this, it just grew and grew and grew. And now it has culminated in a 185-page digital art collection that juxtaposes traditional nursery rhymes with these reanimated versions. And we use reanimated in the sense that we are bringing old and dead things back to life in a new way.
Our gardening expert, Christine Milks, who writes a column called The Constant Gardener, with tips to prepare your garden for the winter. Getting your flowering bulbs into the ground is something you should do later rather than earlier.
Bulbs that you buy for a new planting of spring flowering bulbs, they're basically in a dormant stage when you buy them. Now, should you plant them when you think you should, based on our old climate zones, you would probably want to make sure you had them into the ground before Thanksgiving in Canada. And that's not going to work now. In most circumstances, if the ground is too warm, that just causes the bulbs to now want to sprout and grow in this warm soil in the fall.
Science writer Andrew Fazekas, the night sky guy, talks about several things, including the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs.
There's a lot of interest in this historic impact that changed the course of history, wiping out the dinosaurs and so many other life forms on our planet 66 million years ago. And this, of course, is the study of the Chicxulub impactor crater. It's named after this small town that's near the edge of this 90-mile wide crater that was carved out of the ocean basin back in 66 million years ago, sent a huge tsunami around the world and basically killed off the dinosaurs.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news and, of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0788, was Lorne Wolf, who works for Zara in customer service, but he also has a side hustle. He works at both Dragon's Den and Family Feud Canada for CBC Canada. Thank you very much, little buddy, that's a Gilligan's reference, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. We've mentioned this story in passing before, but now we actually have confirmation. A zoo in China was forced to confess what was long suspected, that the pandas people have been gushing about were actually dogs painted black and white. Visitors only realized the scam at the Shanhui Zoo after one of the so-called pandas started panting and barking. Video shot by one of the zoo's guests shows the disguised doggies in their cage, one of which was lying on a rock visibly panting. The camera then pans to the second canine, showing off its long tail. "It's a pan dog," one viewer wrote, while another user joked, "That's the Temu version of a panda." Oh wow, now that's really a good burn. So once the video went viral, the organizers admitted they had painted two Chow Chows, a dog breed originally from northern China, with black and white markings. Visitors have since demanded their money back, claiming false advertising. Earlier this year, the Taizhou Zoo in Jiangsu province was also outed for passing off painted dogs as pandas. Reps for the zoo initially bizarrely claimed they were a rare breed of panda dogs before admitting the species did not exist. Zoo officials told Chinese state media they had clearly marked them as panda dogs, so they didn't do anything wrong. At the time, the zoo was called out for misleading visitors and mistreating the animals. However, zoo officials defended the exhibit, stating that the dogs had not been harmed. Said one spokesperson, "Normal people dye their hair. Dogs can dye their hair too. It's the same hair." Well, now that the dogs have been outed, what will happen next?
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the pets, and it's a shame.
Okay, admit it. You kind of saw that one coming, huh? Anyway, the Chinese zoos are giving pandas a bad name.
With a tangy, sweet and spicy sauce. It just might be our tastiest dish yet, and it's only at Panda Express.
And we've come full circle. Yeah. 32-year-old Norton Havoc, and there's an interesting last name, Havoc, recently said they can now smell colors after blowing their nose in the shower and dislodging a Lego block that had been stuck inside for at least 26 years. Havoc posted that they suffered from multiple breathing issues after the childhood incident. At the time, their mom tried to extricate the piece with tweezers to no avail. Said Havoc, "I can breathe out of this side of my nose now, and it's fantastic." Okay, I think I know what all of you are asking yourselves out there. If Havoc's mother tried to get the Lego block out with tweezers but couldn't, why didn't she take the kid to a hospital? I know. It's baffling. Yeah. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, a family in Bedford, Ohio reported their Nissan Rogue and their 8-year-old daughter missing around 9 a.m. on September the 15th. Police learned that witnesses had seen a small child driving nearby, but it wasn't until they checked the parking lot at Target, about 13 miles away, that they discovered the car. The girl was inside the store. She told officers she had hit a mailbox during her journey, but otherwise it was fine. She won't be charged, by the way. Now, I'm guessing, I'm going on the assumption that the reason for no charges is because the rogue precocious child driving the Rogue is safe, and the police department issued a statement on Facebook that was quite humorous. It goes as follows. "Well, I finally found a woman who's in more of a hurry to shop at Target than my wife. More of a hurry by 8 years. That's right, an 8-year-old took Mommy's car this morning and drove to Target in Bainbridge to shop. Thankfully, she made it and was immediately located by Bainbridge police. She's now home safe. Not sure what she bought or if she ever was able to use her Target app to save 5%. We did let her finish her Frappuccino. We're not mean." Yeah, it's kind of cute, and all's well that ends well. Although, we still don't know what she was going to Target for. Perhaps she was hankering to dive into all those back-to-school specials.
Right now, Target is taking price cuts on many back-to-school fashions that you need. Great prices on the looks you want.
Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Performing Arts Studio West in California has a pioneering creative arts program that trains and supports performers with disabilities, elevating their visibility in the media. They currently have a project called Mother Goose Reanimated, an innovative art book that transforms the traditional world of nursery rhymes through a modern lens. To talk about it, we are joined by John Paizis, who is the founder and director of Performing Arts Studio West. He joins us via Zoom from Los Angeles. Hi, John.
Good morning, Peter. How are you, sir?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for doing this. I'm
very happy to be here.
Great. I'm just curious to know, how did this whole thing come about and why nursery rhymes?
Well, Performing Arts Studio West just had its 26th anniversary, and we've had a lot of success working with performers with disabilities with regard to getting them cast in film and television commercials and our original projects, music videos, all sorts of things. Over the past 26 years, our performers have been seen in over 3,000 roles in those different areas of the media. And one of the things I wanted to take a look at is, well, what have they not done? And we really hadn't done any print work. And we were thinking, okay, well, what could be an interesting way to teach the type of skills you would need for print work, modeling skills, and being able to hold a pose and convey an emotion through your body and your facial expressions in a situation that was not film or television. And we thought, okay, well, maybe nursery rhymes would be an interesting way to do this. And our original thought for this was something much, much smaller. It was just a calendar of 12 nursery rhymes, one for each month of the year. And as we kept developing and working on this, it just grew and grew and grew. And now it has culminated in a 185-page digital art collection that juxtaposes traditional nursery rhymes with these reanimated versions. And we use reanimated in the sense that we are bringing old and dead things back to life in a new way. And we have probably 90 of our own actors and models and performers, and 14 celebrities from the entertainment industry who are recreating these rhymes. And it's a beautiful, beautiful project.
Now, the one thing that's interesting about nursery rhymes is that they were always depicting a situation that was attractive to kids, right? Yet, when you look at the nursery rhymes in general, they've got some pretty dark stories behind them, even for children. So I'm just curious to know, are you doing this for children, or is it for the children who are now adults?
It's second one. It is for children who are now adults. Now adults. I'll give you kind of a breakdown of how we've twisted these things. Well, we're all familiar with Little Bo Peep. Little Bo Peep lost her sheep. Da 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 da. Our Bo Peep is now depicted as a World War II B-17 bomber nose art pinup girl. Exotic and beautiful, and this was played by one of our participants, Tiana Fazio, gorgeous, gorgeous young woman on the autism spectrum, had that classic 1940s look. Humpty Dumpty, which we are all familiar with, is in the reanimated version, now a patient confined to a 19th century insane asylum. Little Miss Muffet is now a 1960s psychedelic pop artist who creates and paints better when she's using hallucinogenics. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, is a fearsome captain of a pirate vessel that has captured 4 beautiful mermaids and taking them to port to sell. The old woman who lives in a shoe, she's an evil overseer of a dystopian society shoe factory, and she has all these indentured servants that she is using and abusing to create the product that she is selling, which is shoes. Old King Cole is a heroin-addicted jazz musician. The Cat and the Fiddle is now a story about alien abduction. So we have taken these off the charts to places that people wouldn't even think of. And not only is there a new digital illustration of these classic rhymes, but there is also a new storyline, which is written in prose, that gives you an idea of the depth and the darkness. And some are rather comical too, but the majority of them are rather dark and mysterious.
So how does one get their hands on Mother Goose Reanimated?
We are available on Amazon. We just went up on Amazon last week, so go to Amazon.com, type in Mother Goose Reanimated. We are available in hardcover, softcover, and Kindle versions.
Excellent. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Performing Arts Studio West. You guys have been around for almost 30 years, and again, you train and support performers with disabilities. I'm just curious to know if it's getting any better or easier or more viable in this day and age than it was 30 years ago, or are you still struggling with the same battles you were struggling with then?
It certainly has gotten better. I think the industry and the media has opened up their eyes. It was a tough sell in the early days. We would find out about a project that was, looking for somebody on the autism spectrum, a character on the autism spectrum. We would contact the casting directors and say, "Hey, we have a trained actor on the autism spectrum that we think that would be perfect for this." Well, we're not really going that way. That has changed tremendously, because for a piece to truly have authenticity, I think it's the absolute best in any situation to have a trained actor with the disability that they are portraying. And although I understand, that there's box office, so if you have a television show about a doctor who is on the autism spectrum, it's good to have a famous individual, playing that person, an established star, and that's kind of been the tradition. But there's so much more out there now with regard to all the different types of productions, and obviously, creators that are bringing to life new stories that have characters with disabilities, that it has gotten easier over the years. Let's just say there's more opportunities for sure. You're still in competition because there's a lot of actors now with disabilities who are also looking for work.
When Performing Arts Studio West was first created, was there an event, a reason, a thought process where push came to shove and you said, this has got to happen, we've got to start this, because if we don't, no one will?
It's interesting how it came about. I had my mom was a special education teacher. My dad was an educator. I had a cousin with a developmental disability. I was an actor and a singer and a dancer, New York trained actor, went to the neighborhood playhouse. When I came to when I came to Los Angeles in 1980, I was in a rock band. I was a lead singer and head of this rock band. And my day job was working with adults with disabilities. I worked with 8 men on the autism spectrum. And I worked with that agency. I rose from being a classroom instructor to a program supervisor to an assistant associate director. That agency closed, and I was still involved in the entertainment industry, but I no longer had a day job. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I've met so many talented and wonderful people over the years. I think I could start a program that would train some of these wonderful people I've met and new people coming in who are interested to be part of the industry." And we started off with original productions, small things. And after about a year, we really discovered that we had some very, very talented people. So we opened our talent management department, and things just took off from there.
Excellent. So let's get back to, very quickly, to Mother Goose Reanimated. Chicken or egg kind of situation. Which came first? Some of the interesting stories that you have created on the genre of nursery rhymes that you've reimagined, or did you have the actors first and try to fit them into a situation that was most fitting for them?
A little bit of both. We chose the rhymes first. We thought, what would be the most visual rhymes that we could depict? What would create a wonderful storyline? And then we would cast from the characters that we have. A great example of that is Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, the one that now we're Mary as a pirate captain. We had so many rough and tumble guys that could be the pirate crew. We just thought, oh my God, this would be perfect for that. And we had a beautiful woman on the autism spectrum with the most stoic and gorgeous face to be this fearful yet beautiful sea captain. So it's a little bit of both. Chose the rhymes first, cast from the individuals we had. When we brought in some of the celebrities from the entertainment industry, and my God, we got some wonderful people joining us. We have, the amazing Mindy Sterling from the Austin Powers franchise, Naomi Grossman and Jamie Brewer and Matt Fraser from American Horror Story. We have Jade Taylor from The Magicians, Kurt Yeager from Sons of Anarchy and Tell Me a Story. We got so many wonderful people. Those individuals, we thought that person would be perfect for this rhyme. and tied that together. And they had been friends of the studio for a while. We had worked with them in doing workshops or seeing them at other events. So they were kind of friends of the studio already.
Well, it's just coming out, but are you already excited and with the possibility of maybe even doing some more of these down the road?
Yes, I mean we have so many plans, and we're going to be at Comic-Con too. I want to make sure we drop that. We are going to be at Los Angeles Comic-Con October 4th, 5th, and 6th. We have a booth there supporting and selling our product, obviously. But people come down, check us out. We'll talk about Performing Arts Studio West, get some books signed, and looking forward to a lot of fun. We are looking at the long-term possibility of an anthology series based on the 12 rhymes. So that is something we have in development right now that we're very excited about. Well, so a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on the success of Mother Goose Reanimated. And John, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
It is my absolute pleasure, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. And you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
John Paizis, the founder and director of Performing Arts Studio West. Their innovative art book is called Mother Goose Reanimated. You can go to our website at thestuffwall.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0788, and you'll find the link to their site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order their book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/The Stuff File program. Coming to you from the outskirts of sanity, this is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
And still to come on the program, we'll talk about getting your garden ready for the winter. Plus, Andrew Fazekas, the night sky guy, is here to talk about the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. We also have an idiot of the day coming your way a little later on, and much more in Stuff File News right here, right now. 23-year-old Javon J. Owens was charged with first-degree attempted murder after he got into a dispute over a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on September the 15th. A witness told DeKalb County, Illinois police that Owens and another man argued about the victim not cleaning up after themselves, whereupon Owens swung a butter knife and struck the other man. The victim was seen at a local hospital but had to be transported to Chicago for further treatment of a punctured intestine. He said he believed 100% that Owens would kill him. Owens faces up to 60 years in prison. Okay, up until now, I never thought of a butter knife as a deadly weapon. Owens could spend 60 years in prison for a PBJ snack. Full disclosure, I don't like peanut butter, so I don't understand going down for this crime. And earlier this year, social media star and model Sue Ellen Carey, who lives in the United Kingdom, shared her wedding with her many followers. The ceremony was unconventional, as Carey married herself. She called her lifestyle sologamy, or she did until she recently divorced herself, even after several rounds of couples therapy. Yeah. As Carey posted, "It's crucial to know when to end a cycle. Even commitment to oneself can have its challenges, such as dealing with the expectation of being perfect for yourself all the time." She said she felt lonely in her self-marriage and her own company was, quote, exhausting. Wow. We can Only imagine. A man in Maine who was convicted of assaulting a child this past week ran out of the Skowhegan courthouse while in handcuffs before he was subdued. Surveillance video shows 31-year-old Nicholas Carter running down a hallway of the courthouse and getting past another man who tried to stop him. A Somerset County Sheriff's Office deputy who was pursuing Carter was close behind. Carter made it out of the building and across the street before he appeared to slip and fall on the ground. That was when 2 jurors helped apprehend Carter, and a detective was able to take him into custody. The incident happened after Carter had been found guilty of aggravated assault on a 14-month-old child. Carter is now facing a new charge in connection with his escape attempt. You know, I'm assuming that the next time in court he'll also have leg irons too. So, he was convicted by a jury of his peers and also apprehended by a jury of his peers. Now, that's poetic justice. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, we often share stories of jailbreaks like that last one, but this next story, that's a new one. A man caused extensive damage to a door at the Allegheny County Jail while attempting to break into the building. The attempt took place to the visitors' lobby of the jail at around 7 a.m. Pittsburgh police officers responded to the jail and found 34-year-old Charles Felder with a minor injury. Detectives started an investigation and determined he tried getting into the lobby through various means, damaging the door and hurting himself. Felder was seen on surveillance video trying to use garbage cans as battering rams and kicked the door multiple times. Felder also allegedly yanked the door handle off. He allegedly continued these attempts for 3 hours before passing out. Medics were called and allegedly Felder spit on one of their faces and put up a fight as they tried to load him into an ambulance. He was taken to an area hospital for treatment of minor injuries. Felder faces harassment and burglary-related charges. Well, I think everybody will be happy in this story. I mean, Felder wanted to break into a jail, and authorities are planning to put him in a jail. I think that's what's called a win-win. Anyway, let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Now that we are nearing the end of September, it's time to prepare your garden for the winter. So what exactly do you need to do now to prepare your garden for next year? That's the question we put to Christine Milks, a lifelong gardener who also has a regular column called The Constant Gardener in Vista Magazine, which is a publication for a seniors association in the Kingston, Ontario region. Chris joins us once again via Zoom from Gananoque, Ontario. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for being on the program with us. So, we chatted off air, and you brought up an interesting point, and that is sometimes people prepare for their gardens for the next year. They do it too early.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes they're tempted too early based on what they see available in the big box stores or grocery stores. And that has always been a traditional problem because larger stores get their stock in about a month before anybody in their right mind needs it. But now with climate change, that's kind of been compounded because now we're seeing stuff an extra month earlier than when we should be planting it. The climate change has changed the hardiness zones in Canada overall and in Ontario quite drastically over the past, 30 years, 40 years. So just as an example, where we live and we're right at the junction of the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario, we've traditionally been a 5B, and some of the islands would be little pockets where it was warmer climate. That would be like a 6A. It's just shocking when you look at the Canada hardiness zones now, and you see that since 2010, this area has now moved up a whole half a zone. and is now a 6A. So that makes me assume that out on the river, those places are now like a 6B, probably heading to a 7.
Okay, so
And
I'm an inner city kid. So
yes,
what you're talking to me about right now is like Latin. What are the
right.
zones, and what does it mean in the zone from 5B to 6A? What does that actually mean?
It means we're getting closer to my dream of having fuchsia standard plants sometime. And here's the background to that. When we take these road trips, you go look at test gardens and stuff around the Niagara Peninsula. I was always so envious of the plants that would winter over, that were winter hardy in, like, say, that peninsula into Windsor. And that is probably the mildest place in Canada for growing plants. We're edging awfully close to being able to grow delicate plants and have them winter over. So the hardiness zones, they're planting zones, and traditionally Ontario has gone from, there's 8 zones altogether, and they range from 0 to 7. And I have a feeling they're going to have to start expanding that to probably an 8. And that just means that plants that we consider delicate, that we grow them only as annuals because the winters would kill them, they might start being things that we could easily winter over these days. Montreal, by the way, I looked that up. Montreal is in the same growing zone as where I live, and it has also moved from a 5B to a 6A. So it just determines which plants you can grow.
Okay, so for those listening right now who might be in the United States, you mentioned climate change. It's getting hotter here, so I would assume it's also getting hotter there.
Oh, I would assume as much as well, Peter. And it's going to be interesting to see what the next version of the hardiness zones tells us. And it's just that we're probably the United States, central to southern United States, will start to certainly be moving closer and closer to what we consider to be tropical growing areas. But the only thing that climate change can affect, when I get thinking about it, is the hours of sunlight. Other than that, climate change is going to affect the frost-free days that you have in a year, the range of temperature, the lowest temperature you get in the winter, rainfall, and the only thing it's probably not going to affect is the hours of sunlight.
Okay, so I said at the beginning that we are near the end of September, and that you say that some people prepare their garden for the winter early. That's in normal times. Are we saying that it's even earlier than it should be now because of climate change?
Yes, for sure. In a nutshell, yes.
Okay, so what's
let's talk about spring flowering bulbs. If you're putting in new plantings of spring flowering bulbs, typically we used to advise people in our garden center and whatnot to plant early mid-fall, and now it looks like they should really be thinking about late fall to possibly even early winter. The bulbs that you buy for a new planting of spring flowering bulbs, they're basically in a dormant stage when you buy them. Now, should you plant them when you think you should, based on our old climate zones, you would probably want to make sure you had them into the ground before Thanksgiving in Canada. And that's not going to work now. In most circumstances, the ground is too warm. That just causes the bulbs to now want to sprout and grow in this warm soil in the fall. That means it's kind of iffy whether they would survive the winter and reflower in the spring when you wanted them to, because they won't have enough time to gather strength into that bulb for reflowering in the spring. So you have to wait. The ground is a lot warmer than it used to be.
So you basically have to test the ground. You just can't go by the calendar, go by the ground.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. You go by the calendar, that means you're just looking to do it when it's convenient for you and not when it's appropriate for the plant or the bulb. I remember one time we had a customer who wanted bulbs put in very, very late into the year. It was in November, and my husband went out and rented a post hole digger, and he dug into a frozen ground and put the bulbs in. And he told the customer, he said, they'll be fine. And they were. And I think that's what we're getting closer to these days. I think you're going to have to start thinking about planting your bulbs in November, because typically they always advised you to wait until maybe you've had a first frost or a week where the evening temperatures went between like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, 40 to 50 Fahrenheit, and just trying to get the ground cool enough so that the bulbs aren't going to be tricked into thinking they should be growing. And I always remember Martha Stewart had a little rule of thumb, which I'm always keen on these little rules. Basically, go by the touch of the ground at about 6 inches deep. So dig a hole about 6 inches deep, because that's where you're going to plant the bulb. Put your hand down there, and if the ground is cool to the touch, you're probably okay to plant.
What are some of the do's and don'ts? Are actually some of the don'ts.
Okay. Some of the don'ts for fall gardening: don't remove all the leaves off your lawn unless you really, really want a tidy home front. It's better to let the worms get at them. The leaves will be gone by spring, and you will have enriched your soil. Don't trim all the berries off your shrubs. The birds will love them, and they'll appreciate all that. Don't fertilize. Please don't fertilize anything unless you're going to maybe put some bone meal in with your spring flowering bulbs or around some of your shrubs, because that is a very, very slow acting fertilizer. And that is a lovely resource for your plants to be able to grab in the spring. But other than bone meal, please don't fertilize.
We just about out of time, and there was one other thing that you mentioned when we talked off air that I found was absolutely interesting, and that was the idea of sacrificial bulbs when you're dealing with squirrels. Explain that.
Oh, right. Oh, and you'd always have people come in. They'd be so frustrated come spring to find out that these bulbs that they had planted so carefully in such a wonderful pattern, that squirrels had interfered and had decided to feed their little family and had helped themselves to some of these tasty first quality bulbs. Now, we had lots of people who recommended, so you do two bulb plantings. You do the one that you want to have for show. That's the one that you carefully plan. And then there's the other one that you plant on the edge of your property, or where you think the squirrels are going to get to it first before they get to your good stuff. And that's where you just buy a bag of the cheapest bulbs you can, a bag of like very inexpensive tulips, and plant them there, because it is true that it's probably going to stop the squirrels. They'll stop at the easiest food first and possibly leave your good stuff alone. And then we had one other customer. Oh, this is in the days of when there's also, it's a very good tip to plant your bulbs and then put some chicken wire over top of them. The chicken wire will stop the squirrels from digging up the bulbs, likely, unless it's a really harsh winter. And then come spring, the bulbs will find their way through the chicken wire and they'll flower and they'll be fine. So we had another customer who didn't want to even spend the money on chicken wire. She was very smart. She would trim her rose bushes in the fall after they finished blooming, and she would just simply lay the branches across her spring flowering bulb beds. And those lovely little thorns did a great job of keeping the squirrels away. And then come spring, the gardener, she said she felt almost giddy. She was so pleased with herself. She said it was just a simple job to just take a rake away the thorny branches, and she had saved her bulbs from the squirrels.
Thwarting the squirrels. I think we'll end it on that. Thank you very much, Christine, for being with us on the program once again. You have the regular column in the Constant Gardener in Vista Magazine. Continued success with that. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Christine Milks, who has a regular column called The Constant Gardener in Vista Magazine, a publication for a seniors association in the Kingston, Ontario region. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Here's a brief word about our show and my book. If you become a regular Patreon patron of the Stuff File program, I'll give you an e-version of my book, Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. It's easy to do. Just go to patreon.com and become a patron to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. So, join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. Sign up at patreon.com/The Stuff File Program.
Coming to you from Canada, a place where fighting is frowned upon, unless it's on an ice rink. This is the Stuff File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Now, the Stuff File presents Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. It's radio that's out of this world.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and the author of National Geographic's Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, and also National Geographic's Stargazer's Atlas, the Ultimate Guide to the Night Sky. And Andrew, apparently the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs is being studied more deeply than the Zapruder film.
That's right. There's a lot of interest, of course, in this very historic impact, that changed the course of history, of course, on our planet, wiping out the dinosaurs and so many other life forms on our planet 66 million years ago. And this, of course, is the study of the Chicxulub impactor crater. It's named after this small town that's near the edge of this 90-mile wide crater that was carved out of the basin, the ocean basin, back in 66 million years ago, sent a huge monster tsunami around the world, and basically killed off the dinosaurs through very severe climate change that happened, and they couldn't survive it. Of course, the little mammals scurrying about underground, which eventually formed all the mammals that we see today, including humans, survived that historic impact 66 million years ago. But we don't know too much about the rock itself that hit. We know about the size. It's about 10 kilometers across, the rock was. But, its origins, its pedigree, we just did not know very much about until recently. We've been starting to analyze some of the trace elements that rained back down on our planet from that giant impact, and these minerals that they're looking at are actually on the other side of the planet in Europe, where it rained down 66 million years ago. And by looking at those little elements, they were able to tell that the rock, the originating asteroid, was probably coming from beyond Jupiter, which is interesting because most asteroids in the solar system reside within the asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter. So this rock was probably part of a group of asteroids that are influenced by the gravitational well of Jupiter. So it's very interesting. And this kind of gives us an idea of what the city-sized rock was about, how it may have gotten here, what kind of gravitational dance it went through to reach Earth so long ago. And it's really interesting because the origin of objects like this has been a great mystery to scientists. And understanding these ancient giant asteroids that is really pivotal to understanding the evolution of life on our planet. We think that there were actually multiple impacts of similar type of asteroids that occurred over many hundreds of millions of years. And those impacts represented times where there were huge extinctions on our planet. So it's very interesting. There was a time, Peter, billions of years ago, when the inner solar system was continually pelted by asteroids and comets. It was called the Great Bombardment Era. This was way before the dinosaur killer asteroid. We're talking over 1 billion years ago. But you can see the remnants of all of that activity on the moon. The surface of the moon is just filled with craters, and the vast majority of those were formed during that great era of bombardment. And so even though this impact happened 66 million years ago, not a billion years ago, it still tells us that there are probably more rocks like that, giant city-sized rocks looming in the outer solar system, not beyond the asteroid belt, which is really interesting.
Oh, good. Good to hear. I mean, the dinosaurs roamed the Earth, and despite what some people might think, dinosaurs and man did not roam the Earth at the same time. But dinosaurs weren't as evolved as we are, so as a result, they didn't have to worry about a Bennu coming their way because they didn't know any better. But we do. Now, you mentioned the location as to where that giant rock hit that killed off all the dinosaurs. Where on Earth is that exactly?
So that's it's near Mexico. It's in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's you can still see the remnants through like these radar echo systems that the machines that they can put instruments they can put down. They've mapped out the consecutive rings of this impact crater. It really does look like an impact crater if you look at the seismological kind of data. But it's underneath the Gulf of Mexico, underneath the water. You can't really just go and see it. It's not visible to the eye, and but the remnants are still there. And of course, because of Earth having very high geologic activity, there's a lot of tectonic activity, and weathering. Very strong weathering systems, weather patterns, climate over many, eons erases these signatures of these impacts. It's very different on the moon, right, Peter? Because there's no atmosphere there. It's pretty much of a dead celestial body compared to the Earth, and so a lot of these ancient impacts remain frozen in time, and we can see them and study them much more easily on the moon. But the moon is our closest celestial neighbor, and so we use the moon as a great analog in studying these ancient impacts.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned gravitational dance, and that kind of goes to the next story that I want to touch on. The Jupiter-bound JUICE slingshots its way from Earth on its way to Venus before heading to Jupiter. So I want to know why it needs to go the wrong direction to Venus to then whip past Earth again before heading off to Jupiter.
Yeah, and just to be clear here, there's multiple encounters between Earth and the Moon and even Venus before it gets to its destination. And the reason for this is really economical in many senses, and to get the biggest bang for their buck for scientists. So this mission, JUICE, represents a really cool mission that is designed to orbit the moons of Jupiter for us to analyze the moons like Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, to understand these moons. They're very interesting to science because we want to go there and study them because we think they're actually huge oceans that are covered with a layer of ice on the exterior shell of these little moons, and these could be harboring life. It's an environment that could be hospitable to life in our solar system. These moons have that possibility, so we want to study them more closely, and so that's what JUICE is all about. Now, when it gets there in 4 years' time, they need time to study these planets, and not just time. They need to be able to maneuver the spacecrafts and really these death-defying dives close up to the moons. And to do that, they need fuel, and they need a lot of it to do that. And study each of these moons multiple times, doing close barnstorming, basically, these moons. And to do that, they need a lot of fuel. And to save on the fuel, it's best to do what we call slingshot methods of using the gravitational pull of moons and planets in the solar system to help us save fuel to get us to our final destination in these outer planets. This is a technique that has been used before in other missions very successfully. It's amazing the engineering that goes on and a lot of death-defying maneuvering that has to be done many times last minute during encounters, like the one that Juice just did with the moon and the Earth, where literally the spacecraft Barnstorm just flew past Earth no more than 6 to 8,000 kilometers in altitude only. That's closer. That's a magnitude closer than where our communication satellites orbit the Earth. Like they were close. It went closer than that. So these kind of maneuverings are very difficult to do, but if they do it right, which they seem to be doing with Juice, they can get this spacecraft to Jupiter in 4 years' time. We have to wait a while, but it's going to be filled with fuel. And according to what I've read from the European Space Agency that's been piloting this spacecraft, they've actually managed to save more fuel than they have expected already. So they're really excited because the more fuel they can save with each of these slingshots by Earth and the Moon and Venus, they can do that much more science once they reach Jupiter's moons.
And that's an interesting story. And I actually saw some animated video which explains exactly how Juice slingshots. So now with that and what you had to say, I've got an education. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Of course. These are like such cool times that we live in with missions like these.
Absolutely. And there's so much more that we can talk about that we didn't get a chance to. So how about if we go over to Patreon?
Yeah, let's do that. I wish everyone clear skies.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0788, and you'll find links to Andrew's site to get your own personal autographed copy of his books. And Patreon subscribers, you can hear more of Andrew as a Patreon reward extra, where we'll discuss other countries besides the U.S., Russia, and China who are carving out their own space programs, the recent Polaris spacewalk, why we should regulate the moon to share its possible resources, and more. Just go to our Patreon page, and if you're not already a member, become one of the select patrons of the show. Visit patreon.com/thestuffileprogram. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. And we do have an Idiot of the Day coming your way in just a matter of moments, but I've got a few more Stuff File news stories to share with you right here, right now. Now, this is a story that is directed to listeners who might be hearing our show in Australia. If you have received what looks like a condom from ShiftPack in the past 6 months, do not use it. This is advice from Sexual Health and Planning Act, or ShiftPack, as I said earlier, an organization in the Australian Capital Territory. In a letter to parents, Caitlin Horan, principal of Dixon College, a public school the organization serves, wrote that, quote, "We have been informed that ShiftPack may have inadvertently distributed lubricated probe covers for medical ultrasound equipment rather than condoms. We have informed students of this issue and request that they discard these products, as it is difficult to determine from the packaging whether they are condoms or ultrasound probe covers. The covers come in packaging that clearly says, 'Checkmate, lubricated probe cover.'" Well, that sounds like a euphemism. Checkmate indeed. Okay, here's a little ditty from Conwy, Wales, that should have everyone around the world with a smartphone and a car concerned. If you want to park in Conwy, the local council says you can pay by phone using an app with the memorable name Pay by Phone. If you're looking to pay by phone, you might see QR codes on parking meters and use those to facilitate the payment. If you do, you'll be taken to a website where you can give scammers your credit card number. And as if that weren't bad enough, the council points out that giving your data to some site with a QR code won't protect you from parking fines. The council says it's keeping an eye on the meters and trying to get the scammers' site put offline. Meanwhile, when you use a QR code, make sure it doesn't stand for quick ripoff. Well, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
When 33-year-old Ravesh Rabindranath attempted to steal a Corvette in a Miami Beach, Florida parking garage on September 17th, he encountered a little trouble. He got stuck inside the car, which is where its owner, Julio Solano, found him. Solano recorded the incident on his phone. By the way, I've seen this video. It's hysterical. I'll share it with you on the Stuff File social media pages. Anyway, Solano started by saying,
"My brother, this is not your car. This is my car. But why are you in my car?"
You'll notice that there's a gap in the dialogue where Solano is waiting for a response. You can't hear it because, again, Ravesh is locked in the car. It's like a cone of silence with him doing pantomime or playing a bad game of charades. Anyway, Solano goes on to say,
"No, you can't get out because we calling the cops." "What do you mean for what? This is Grand Theft Auto. I don't know what. Are you trying to steal my car? What are you doing?"
Solano said the car's security system wouldn't allow the thief to start the car or escape. I love the local media's phrasing of the situation. They said, quote, "The suspect had been unable to get out of the car due to an unconventional door mechanism he could not figure out." Oh, but he did get out. When the cops arrived, now, why? Oh, why? Would you try to steal a $90,000 car that you know nothing about, and when you get locked into said vehicle, you feel that you can plead your way out of the vehicle with its owner as if nothing nefarious has happened? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0788. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0788. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WLSL-LP-FM in Dade City, Florida, KZZH-LP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, CFQR 600 in Montreal, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. I'm your humble announcer, Ben Patrick Johnson. I can please only one person per day. Today is not your day. Tomorrow's not looking good either.